As I promised, I was going to give you a little longer teaching on For the Joy Set Before Him Day on Good Friday. John chapter 19 is where I want to settle, and I want to point out just a few things. I'm not going to take time to read the entire crucifixion account, although it is worth reading. But if you want to, start in John 19, verse 17, and it goes all the way through till the end to 37, right before the burial of Jesus. I'm going to start in verse 25. A few weeks ago, I talked about how the book of Jude was proof of Jesus' resurrection. And here is another bit of a proof. So it says, standing at the cross of Jesus were his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Cleopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple that he loved, by the way, that's the Apostle John, he said to his mother, "Woman, here is your son, and man, here is your mother." Why would Jesus put his mom into the care of the disciple John when there were 3 or 4 other siblings to care for her? It says that from that hour, John the apostle took Mary into his home and cared for her. Again, I think this is proof that his siblings at that point, at the cross, did not think he was the Messiah. Now we know that that changed. But John is writing this many, many, many years later. And at that point, he was still caring for Jesus' mother. Verse 28. After this, when Jesus knew that everything had been finished and that the scripture might be fulfilled, he said, "I'm thirsty." And a jar full of sour wine was sitting there. So they fixed the sponge full of sour wine onto a hyssop branch and held it up to his mouth. When Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, "It is finished." Then bowing his head, he gave up his spirit. Now, I had never seen this before, really until this morning. During the Passover, they would dip hyssop into the blood of the lamb, and they would paint the blood over the lintels of the doors. In the temple, they would dip hyssop into the blood of the lamb, and they would anoint the Holy of Holies by taking the hyssop and sprinkling the blood onto the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant. I find it interesting that in this account of Jesus, and John was the only disciple present at the crucifixion, that they took hyssop, dipped it into, what is the word? It's sour wine, so it's fermented and it's not even clean. And they offer it to him to drink. They take a symbolic showing of blood and they anoint. You can't see my arms, but they're extended like the lintels of the door because he's on the cross. And he takes it, he drinks the cup of God's wrath. Verse 31, since it was the preparation day, the Jews did not want the bodies to remain on the cross during a Sabbath, for it was a special Sabbath. They requested that Pilate have the men's legs broken and that their bodies would be taken away. So the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first man, and then they broke the legs of the second man. But when they came to Jesus, they did not break his legs because he was already dead. But one of the soldiers pierced his side, and immediately blood and water came out. He who saw this has testified so that you may believe. His testimony is true, and he knows that he is telling the truth. For these things had to have happened so that the scripture would be fulfilled. Not one of his bones were broken. And also the other scripture that said they gazed on the one they had pierced. So that was Psalm 22, verse 18, and Zechariah 12:10 are the Old Testament prophecies that are fulfilled by this account. But this is really what I want to point out to you. Back in verse 31, it says, since it was a preparation day, when the preparation day was the preparation day for the Passover, it's now about 3 in the afternoon. Jesus has been on the cross between 5 and 6 hours at this point, because it was a Sabbath, a special Sabbath. Jesus's first day in the tomb was a Sabbath. Jesus declared himself Lord of the Sabbath. And Paul tells us to labor to enter in to his rest, a Sabbath rest that has been reserved for those who believe. Jesus' first day, after they removed him from the cross and laid him in the tomb, was Shabbat. He rested in the tomb so that you, my friend, would have rest in this life and in a life eternal. He paid the price so that you and I would have rest. Hebrews chapter 12 says this: run the race with endurance, keeping your eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of your faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and he sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. You, my friend, are the joy. You are the reason he rested. You are the one why he took the beating, the piercings in his hands, the spear in his side, the thorns on his head. They beat him in his face. They pulled out his beard. They mocked him. And Pilate declared that he was innocent. But the people rose up against him. And on the cross, he said this: Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. He paid the price for the joy set before him. And that joy is you. Have an amazing, peaceful Shabbat, Good Friday. It is for the joy set before him day, and that joy is you.